Hey, what's up? Chris here. Got my new office layout. I don't know how many of you follow me over on Instagram. I'm Gam Keto Guy. Easy to find. But if you do, you're going to figure out exactly how many days lag I currently had on my buffer for my recording queue because I had to move all my furniture out before the carpet cleaners came in, move all the furniture back in. Basically, that's sort of deal at our apartment that if we renewed our lease by a certain time, they would give us free carpet cleaning, which we were going to pass that up because we've been here for a couple years already. But to do so, we had to move all the furniture out, which was kind of 2.5 hours for me, moving everything to our balcony and the kitchen and the bathroom, and our cat did not like it. Anyway, as part of my new layout, kind of stoked about this, right? I got my good old arcade cabinet back in place. I got some of my old game hardware behind me. I'm not sure what you can or can't see. That switch, that's being, it's not going to be there for long. We got some other stuff over here. It's not even mine. It's being passed through me. I'll say it. It's part of a donation for one of the high schools I volunteer with. Speaking of which, actually I want to share one more cool thing about my new setup. Is this camera's on a big swivel. So I can also set it up and do some green screen stuff without even moving anything in my office. How sweet is that? I bet I've probably messed up the orientation at this point. Anyway. So yeah. Switch is getting donated to Hawkins in that case. But today I was in Chatsworth volunteering with another high school. And one of the things I like about all these different high schools out here that have game development programs, one of the cool things about California. I mean, like, so Chatsworth is a charter school, Hawkins is a pilot school, but basically there's these various ways and structures and approaches that allow them to have some more flexibility in their curriculum than traditional institutions, and they kind of serve as a way to try out different approaches and things. And part of what's cool is, at first my tendency was like, why don't these schools all get together and centralize their plans or whatever? But it's actually really cool that they all take such very different approaches, different structurally, different curriculum, different tools, different everything. They may be eventually playing each other with some esports competitions, which reminds me, got a couple business cards from some esports people at a meetup the other day. I'm supposed to introduce to one school, the other, or both, to be speakers. There it is. Remind me to do that after this call. After this chat. Anyway, so while I was up there, there's some patterns that I found in their projects. And one of the other things I learned from when I worked with kids, and of course when I taught young children, I taught young children. I still have one client who's much younger than my rest. But when I taught young kids, one of the cool things I figured out was they run into the same questions and uncertainties that adults have, but they're not as embarrassed about it. See, adults, now, not all adults, a lot of adults get real wound up, bound up, stuck when they feel like there's a thing I should already know, but I don't know it. Never going to ask. Not even sure if I can articulate the question because I won't let myself admit my uncertainty, my confusion, show how naive I am at this thing. Because when we're adults, we're used to being around people who are doing stuff at a professional level. And that's our comparison point. So anyway, one of the things I like about this sort of thing when I work with youth is I get to figure out some stuff that if they're confused about it, some adults are confused about it too, but aren't as comfortable navigating that. So I'm going to share a few of the patterns I came up with, noticed today. Just the recurring patterns that once I zoom out, I realize a lot of beginners, including, heck, some adults I know who are beginners, run into these same mistakes. Let's hit some of those, kind of share that knowledge. One of the things I like to do, right, is if I'm doing something for free, part of my deal is I get to repurpose that information for free. In fact, I even recorded, gave a little intro talk to my stuff. Might share my bit of that talk at a podcast episode or something. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get to those. I know there's been a lot of setup already on this video. New office, I'm enjoying it. Same office. First one, level design stuff, right? It's kind of a very amateur sign when your every single room fills the full canvas, fills the full rectangle. Make some areas inaccessible. Make some rooms smaller than others by filling in margins, right? Make the rooms have a little different silhouette or profile by some have a little corner cut out. Now, you could, of course, imagine, just like with a real house, that the reason it's cut out is because there's a chimney over there. This is a room or a corridor that's smaller. You might think of it, but functionally, doesn't really matter what's going on back there. The important part is that it gives the brain a way to landmark the space so the rooms feel dissimilar, so the environments don't all feel the same. Speaking of which, one of the other questions that keep coming up was, how in what ways is your level 3 or 5 or whatever different from level 1? And the easy answer is, well, it's harder. But you need it visually to be distinct. You need it to have show the player visual progress. Make sure there's some sort of elements, whether it's enemies, power-ups, items, features, decorations, whatever, that show up in your later levels, not in your earlier levels. If possible, floor swap outs in like an overhead environment or wall swap outs in any kind of environment go a long way to help really feel like I'm making progress. I was outside, now I'm inside. I was inside, now I'm in the executive suite. Speaking of decorations, and this is a thing that across the board, all kinds of other amateur student games, admittedly some probably club games to be honest, need to work on more of, and that is making sure you've got decorative art. And what I mean by decorative art is that when we're trying to make a game, and we're early on in a game making process, necessarily we're planning around and prioritizing. Well, I need art for this because it's a bad guy. I need art for this because it's an item. I need art for this because it's the player character. I need art for this because it's a door, a switch, a key, goal item. But you also need a lot of decorative art. And by decorative, again, what I mean is you don't interact with it. It doesn't hurt you. You don't pick it up. It may not even block you. Little stuff. Decals, decorations, bushes, pictures on walls, machines, trash. And these serve various functions, right? They help convey to us, what setting am I in? Because otherwise, if you just have walls, it's actually not even clear, am I inside or outside? Is this a nice building or a run-down building? So that goes a long way. It also, again, helps you landmark the spaces to see and feel progress, to mentally compartmentalize as to, okay, well, the area that had more bushes, or the area that had more plates. Another easy level design tip for when doing this to distinguish those spaces is to come at it from giving them a real purpose. And this always sounds like the most natural, obvious thing if you haven't done it, but whatever reason, whatever side effect, when we get in the tool and we start laying out our spaces, even if it's our own editor, there's a tendency to kind of make it all, each room, kind of just from the top down, a room, a puzzle. You need certain elements, you check the boxes, you move on. But it's really helpful to be like, okay, well, this is going to be the kitchen. That's going to be the living room. This is going to be the foyer. That's going to be the basement. And what this helps you do is it decide, okay, well, so then we're going to take our broken glass props and put a bunch of those in the kitchen. We're going to take our rat poop props, I don't know, stick a bunch of them in the basement. And these kind of things can be nice touches, again, help the spaces feel different and helps it feel more real, helps kind of come up with some even little feature ideas, little puzzle ideas can emerge from that. Another thing that was pretty common realization was the lack at which it's good to have thought up answers to kind of story, character, setting, basic narrative writing stuff. And I say this not because, you know me, I'm not really a story, narrative, character person. That's not what drives me as a player. It's not what drives me as a designer. But here's the thing. You want to be able to tell me if the character is a bad character, an evil character, or an obstacle for that matter, why are they doing that? What's going on in their lives that made them that way? Or is it just that they're doing their job? Things like that. These can influence things like character design. These can influence things like tone of the writing for them. These can, again, help inspire ideas about different endings. And they're easy to answer. But only you can answer it. You can't leave it up to an exercise to the player because that just means you never thought about it, when that means you're not having some sort of clear specificity. Same thing goes for setting. Where is this? Is this a big city? Is it a small city? Is it a small town, big town? Is it in the United States? Is it somewhere overseas? And these can, again, kind of give you either just some clues. You don't have to convey it all to the player. You don't have to spell it all out. You don't put your paragraph in front of your game and be like, we are here, the setting is this is the year. But it's going to be that much more rich if you do even a little bit of research into some clues of like, all right, I don't know. Initially by default it was going to be contemporary, but now that you mention when is it, maybe it's kind of fun because the same story could work in 1920. And now we can look up, how did a house look different in 1920? How did a skyscraper look different in 1920? How do people dress in 1920? And suddenly you've got something much more distinctive, something much more coherent, something much more memorable and impactful, just because you answered this pretty small question, where is it and when is it? That kind of thing. Simple backstory stuff. Another bit, and this is something which is universal. This is something I part of what Game Keto Club and VGDev and Game Creation Society structurally address. That it takes some experience, some practice to kind of get used to, is the importance of tentative weekly planning. And you've probably heard me banging the drum on this. I do it forever. I'll keep doing it. But that is something as simple as, all right, you got 4 weeks left. You got 3 weeks left. What is each role on this team trying to do in that week? And this isn't like fixed in stone. This isn't the thing you should be graded on. This is thinking ahead of, all right, we got a programmer, we got a writer, we got an artist. Each week, what is each of these roles trying to do for the team? It might be a bug that's worth fixing. Might be a certain thing. We want to add coins was one of the examples that came up. And it's like, all right, well, when is that happening in the schedule? Because if you save it to the end, it's probably going to get cut. Helps make sure you're using that time effectively. The usual thing, like I brought up before, if something falls behind, you don't make it up the week ahead. You don't magically have twice as much time the next week. Instead, you got to figure out if you're going to drag one of those items forward that didn't get done, what else is getting pushed off the table. Makes you conscientious of these things. Speaking of pushed off, so there's a good example here where someone was stuck on a bug. pretty big game-breaking issue of a bug. Occasionally the player would just up and stop working. And so, okay, what I suggested there was if you're not careful, and this is always the danger zone we're doing in game development. It doesn't matter if you're a grown person working at a giant company. There's always this challenge that the problem you're working on may be flat out beyond you to fix, or just a chance you're not going to solve it. So you need to have a deadline for how long you're going to give yourself to work on this problem, even if it's important, and B, a fallback plan for if I don't solve this in the next week, rather than let this gobble up all the time until we release, either fixing it last minute or can't anyway, I give myself by the end of this week, and if I don't, here's my risk mitigation strategies. Here's my plans B, C, and D. And some of them may not be great. Some of them may not be wonderful. It's like, all right, well, if we remove the bad guy entirely, the bug goes away. Or if we take the bad guy out of Ever After Level 2, the bug stops happening. Or, you know, some heavy-handed things to try of, I'm pretty sure it'll work. We don't want to do it, but it's better than leaving it broken. Or giving up 2 more weeks of our production time to trying to untangle this knot we got ourselves into. So anyway, give it a deadline. Come up with some fallback plans in case you slip that deadline. And I'm sure there's some other stuff. Let me try to think just for a second about what the specific games were. Saw 3 different groups today. 3 different team projects. They were all pretty cool. I want to, you know, student privacy is important to me. I will say I also want to give a shout out to Arthur at Chatsworth. I apologize. I do not know how to pronounce the last name, and I will not attempt it. Also, anyway, I also respect student privacy. Like I say, I won't mention student name stuff, but I do really like his assignments, his structure he's provided for them of kind of like challenging them. So even though I'm like, hey, you know, what do you, writer, give me some backstory. What's your character's deal? Why are we in this setting? Whatever. He's actually, like, in their materials, they had thought about these questions and things. They had answered questions in advance. They'd done stuff in a pretty nice way. They just hadn't yet percolated it over there. And that's going to come with time. Right? One of the things that's obviously cool about making games is that there's so much to learn, so much to think about, so much to pick up and grow through doing together that there's always more to do. So no matter what you do, there's always, it's easy to point out other stuff that's not being done yet. But those are kind of the recurring themes, I think. And if I go up more, I'll make another video. Anyway, I'm exhausted. It's a long drive from Chatsworth back here. I want to thank those of you, by the way, who help support what I do on Patreon. Not to be too pushy about it, but that does specifically, the Patreon support is part of what enables me to take the time aside that I do, to volunteer with Hawkins, to volunteer with Chatsworth, to visit and speak at other schools and teacher training sessions and other stuff in the Los Angeles area, to remote speak with schools, to visit community colleges out here and give talks at those and stuff. That specifically, if you like supporting me and that outreach that I do, it's not that I'm doing it just for that kind of earnings or anything, but it does help me in sort of my mission, being able to help justify setting aside that time, because it ensures that I'm basically delivering on that when I'm doing those posts, when I'm sharing those stories, when I'm doing those kind of updates. So if you're already supporting on Patreon, thank you so much. If you're not, I encourage thinking about it. Even a small amount can make a big difference. Even just seeing the number of people I have supporting me going up, even if it's for $1, is really encouraging, supports me, helps me feel like people have my back on this, care about what I'm doing. But that said too, there's also higher tiers that can help support sponsored members in Game Keto Club, which is a quick shout out basically on other people's behalf. We've at any given time had quite a sizable fraction of involved club members be supported in that way. So you can read about it anyway at patreon.com/GameKeto page if you're interested in more about that. But yeah, good visit. Had fun. Glad I went. Always grateful to be able to fit these things in. And, no, let's call it for the day. Have a good one. I'll have another video soon.